All right, welcome to the Roots and Routes podcast, where it's bigger than just sport, where community and socioeconomics is the root to our success. Always with our hometown heroes had the technology in their time to document their journeys, so we'll do it for the rest of them. And I'm your host, Gerald Gordon, and we are at the legendary 14th Street Community Center. So here we are, season 1, episode 9. So make sure you like, share, subscribe. Follow us on all the digital platforms, and we'll make sure we'll continue to put out amazing content. And our guest for today, his name, David Butcher. Mr. David Butcher has dedicated his life to preserving the often neglected history of communities in the Ohio River Valley. He's a self-taught genealogist, a museum curator, and an archivist. Mr. Butcher's work specializes on the Athens County community of Tablertown. He began his public work as a historian by proposing an exhibit on Tablertown's history at Ohio University's Kennedy Museum in 2003. Since that time, he established the Tablertown People of Color Museum in 2008. The museum attracts visitors from all over the world. In 2022, the Tablertown Museum gained nonprofit status, and Butcher serves as the executive director. You can find more information about Mr. Butcher and his work at the Tablertown Museum website, www.tablertownmuseum.org. Welcome to the Roots and Around. Mr. Butcher.
Thank you. Good forward to it.
It's our pleasure. It's an honor. So, at the Roots and Routes, the very first question that we ask every single guest that comes to the table is, if you had 12-year-old David Butcher in front of you, right, with the experience of life, what advice would you give your 12-year-old self?
Don't take no as an answer. Listen and learn from your elders. Find something that you love to do and pursue it. Find something you love to do. Don't worry about money. Find something that you love to do every day. There's nothing worse than getting up, going to work, a job, just because it pays the bill. And we all get trapped. Don't. That's what I tell my 12.
That's a nugget and a half right there, man. So as we get started, once again, I'm your host, Gerald Gordon. We're here at the Roots and Routes. Let's talk about what you do and how, and we'll get to the point of how you got there. Just gave me this card. I want to give a little bit of background to this museum that you put together. It's called the Tablertown People of Color Museum. Mr. Butcher is the executive director. It's located right up there. It's in Stewart, Ohio. Is that correct?
Yes, that's our address.
Right. And the information, and we'll put all the information right on your screen for anybody that wants to be in contact. And we'll definitely make sure we make a trip up that way. We want to just observe, examine, and learn. I think that's definitely something that's needed. It's time to know about history. And what we want to do is talk about how you got to that point and wanting to pursue that path, learning about the history of Tablertown. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, that's right.
What inspired you, Mr. Butcher, to become, I guess you could call it a historian, a genealogist?
I think to simplify it, really, those are really big terms and study for that. I'm just a guy who really loves his family history, and I want to preserve that the best I can. It's not like he went to school for this. It's something that our elder and someone that's young, when kids were out playing, I was listening to old people. That's something I really enjoyed, listening. And then they pick you, and then they say, okay, hey, I want you to have this. I want you to have that. I want you to remember this. I want you to remember that. I want to take you here. And next thing you know, I have an item in my museum that was given to me when I was 4 years old. 4 years old, something clicked in my head that this is very important.
What was that item at 4 years old?
No, I don't mind at all. My great aunt, Nanny Tabler Butcher, my grandmother's sister, was the midwife. I was born with a ruptured stomach, and I was left with her because my belly button was removed. I was left with her. became very to this woman as a young child. I just remember leaving her house with this sack full of World War I military shells that her husband had brought back from World War I. So you give kids military shells. I went home and played Army. I was playing Army, and my dad, who was a World War II veteran, Robert Butcher, walked by me and said, "Well, your great uncle Elias Butcher brought this back from World War I." Something clicked in my head. Man, he died. So ever since then, things come to me. Things try to preserve.
Interesting to think about connection between blacks and the military from as far back as the Revolutionary War, Civil War. There's not been a war in the history of this country where blacks didn't serve in some capacity on the side of the United States. So when you look at Civil War, when you look at World War I, the several wars this country has been involved in, it's definitely a salute we that are here today, we can give to them, those our ancestors, and we being their descendants, more than just tip our caps. Sacred ground that you could say we walk on today. In terms of Tablertown, why is that particular area significant in the context of what is known as Appalachia, or just in general, just in American history? What significant role do you feel like Tablertown to the world?
We have a history that's common with a lot of African American families, but ours has some little different touches to it. First of all, let me just identify as an African American man. To simplify my DNA, says that I am 50% African, 49% European, and 1% Native American. And this kind of fits our oral history that was passed down. It's nearly 200 years old now. And I am a descendant of a slave named Hannah and a plantation owner's son who had fathered children by this slave Hannah. Freed 6 of her slave children in 1830 in Virginia. And he moved with his slave children after he emancipated them in 1830 from what is now West Virginia to Ohio in the 1830s. And I think that makes us unique because when people come do the tour, I challenge you to find me a cemetery where there's plantation owner, slave owner buried, and then 20 feet from him is his African American.
So let me make sure I have the context right. West Virginia
would have been Virginia early on.
So would that have been, for the audience, would that have been, that would be considered the North, correct? Or would that be considered the
probably the South?
So family, meaning, correct me if I was researching a little bit, Michael
Tabor.
Michael Tabor. Wow.
Full-blooded.
So he's Simon, your what number grandma would be. So she is an enslaved black girl.
Mm-hmm.
Do you happen to know around about what year this was that they started bearing the children that they ended up, see that six children?
Yes. For a long time, all we knew about my grandmother Hannah was that she was a slave and her name was Hannah. We didn't know she made it to Ohio. Wow. We didn't know she was buried in Ohio. Just in the last couple of years, it's come to our light. There's research from my cousin Andrew Tabler, who is our white cousin from D.C., has no African American ancestry, right, but through our German ancestry, we are cousins. He found through the Lutheran Church the baptism of my grandmother Hannah. And how that came to be, we knew we had German ancestry, but in the last couple of years, we actually found our cousin in Germany. And then they came here 3 years ago. I've been there twice to meet them.
So you've been to
Yeah,
Germany?
Yes, I have twice. I will say this, I was very well received. You don't know how some Europeans are going to act when you walk up and say, "Hey, I'm your cousin." But I found them to be very factual. Once the proof was laid before them, I was family.
So I'm sure that was probably a tricky time in this country's history. If you go back to on the loans, that was definitely a no-no between the mixing of the races. At that point in time, for him to try to bear the burden of trying to make sure that they were able to, because if we can get to that point, what I'm going to try to give the audience is he ended up purchasing right? Did he end up trying to emancipate?
He didn't try to emancipate. He emancipated. So he was the owner of the first children, the father. I don't have to explain DNA to you. That's how I got European German DNA.
Yeah.
He did own the 6 children. It was actually owned by his father, George, which was the first generation from Germany, Germania. This is even before Germany existed. And she was the property of George, and she was freed in his will. And she was to remain a slave to his widow till she died. And my grandmother took such good care of Michael's mother that she lived to be way over 100 years old. She literally kept herself enslaved. And I think these are the attributes that Michael saw in property. He inherited her and her children. But it's just truly, it's an amazing story. We have his words on the manumission document 1830, where he set these 6 slave children free. Key word on this whole document, he says, "I do this for the affection I have for them." So for a white man to say that about slaves in 1830, I remember it's 30 years before the Civil War. This is 30 years before Harry. We have his words. We don't have her words, but we have her actions. Her actions are, somehow my grandmother convinced her owner, George Taylor, to free her. Somehow my grandmother convinced Michael to free 6 of her children. A little bit sidetracked there. And her baptism record showed that she was born in 1787. The interesting thing about her baptism record, when they came from Germany, they were Lutheran. And when they were in Germany, when a child was born out of wedlock, would turn the baptism book upside down and record the name. They continued that. Now, this British colony, right? They continued this practice here. Then they started baptizing slaves. Practice. Turn the book upside down, record the name, and you know this person is a slave. The Lutheran Church contacted my cousin Andrew Tabler in D.C. after they found this record, said they have never, ever seen anything like this. He said, explain. He didn't know. He said, explain. Your grandmother Hannah is right side up in the book. Mistake. She's at the top of the page. It says 1787. It says Negro Hannah, Negro woman of Melchior Dubler, which was Michael's grandfather. And so they said in all the research they've ever done, they've never seen a slave in a baptism book right side up. So from that, we have to use some assumptions. Michael or Melchior is now a landowner. He acquired land from the British colony. He has slaves. He's obviously wealthy, and he knows this is his daughter, and he didn't want his daughter in the book upside down. That's how I interpret it.
So I think that's a reasonable clue and interpretation. So let me ask you this: like, how does one go about being enamored with history? One thing, but how does one go about looking up your history? So, are you at the institute? Are you at the library? Are you people coming to you, just bringing you board? It's a collective of a lot of different things.
It has to be a collective, and you can't be afraid to ask questions. I would start with the oldest person in your family. It may be your aunt, uncle, grandpa, whoever. Start with whoever that you can read. Start asking questions and write it down the best you can. And then I'm old school. I was back in the day when we used to have to go to the courthouse. We didn't know everything. So, any way you can get the information, and it's a lot more available now than it was
Way
50
more
years
available
ago.
now than ever. Okay, so in regards to the museum, was there a start date? Was 2018 the start date, or?
When I started this, I got a phone call. Like, as you said early on, I did an exhibit at the Kennedy Museum on campus in 2003, 2004. I wanted to make this a traveling exhibit. I didn't know how to make it go. So it went into storage on my farm. In 2017, I got a call from my wife's cousin, Lisa Flowers, who's worked at university for 30 years. Said, I have a large group coming from Ghana, adults, and they want to learn about community service. So these panels, this old pole wire, set up something for them. And expression, I know people don't believe this, but the expression on their faces in this pole bar, the items didn't want to be seen until the farm covered up. And then something took me and said, we can do this.
Hey, we are at the Roots and Routes podcast. Once again, share, subscribe on all your digital platforms. We are here with Mr. David Butcher. The next question I have for you, sir, continue on about the conversation about the Tablertown People of Color Museum. Can you share some of the artifacts or exhibits that hold a special meaning to you?
The favorite that I have is a Civil War exhibit. We have 5 Civil War soldiers buried in Tablertown, and then all the hills around. There's many more. A lot of the family names, and I'm very proud of that. That's actually what probably really just puts me over the edge to learn more about my family and my history. My grandmother, at the table, growing me school, I would make sure she had her wood and water and everything that she needed. And I knew something was wrong, and I didn't have the words to express. I was disappointed in hearing about Native history and African American history in school. I didn't know how to express that to her. Something in her, and she went in her room. I can hear her shuffling around, brought back a photo of my great-grandfather, Jerry Sims, born 1822 in Virginia, who was a Civil War soldier. He held that in front of me. He said, "This is your grandfather. He was a Civil War soldier. Don't you forget." No one ever told me that is. No one had meant our people had bothered in Civil War ever. And boy, from that moment on, I was really enamored with Civil War. I love that we have Civil War belt buckles. We have medals from the Civil War that our ancestors carried. I'm really proud of that.
And you can have pride in your people's accomplishment, journey that they took. And great that you're taking up the task of preserving history, preserving the heritage, preserving memory, and hopefully for years to come to your museum and learn about history of not only your family, your life.
And that's what's really important to me. It doesn't do me any good to preserve all these things and these artifacts. My job is make sure I pass it on to generation. And I feel really confident that we are leaving it in really good hands. We have a lot of educated family members. My first president was Dr. Kenton Butcher, who's now a professor at Bucknell University. So that's our job as we go on, is make sure we pass this on.
How do you go about the approach of documenting those things? How do you archive the information and the artifact? Clearly, you have it in the museum, but is there other backup methods as well?
Yeah, we hope to digitize everything in the museum to make it available to people around the world. This story has been told in Europe. The story of my grandmother has been told in Germany, and be able to click on a computer and tour a museum in Tablertown, cool with it.
So what about the people of Athens, the surrounding areas, local? How have they responded to your endeavor to put together the museum?
We're really blessed. We're 10, 15 minutes from Ohio University. I literally have people from all over the world in this little pole barn museum. And our long-term goal is to build a new museum. And we received a small federal grant, take this grant 3 years. And Ambler grant is for communities that were impacted by coal. You get them to come back sometime. That's a whole other story. So we were left with polluted land, toxic water, and landfills in our community after they extracted the coal. And my wife and I purchased the property. We hope to build a starting year.
Congratulations on the grant. Definitely achievement. We can access to resources and preserve those things. I think priceless in itself.
When my family came into that region in the 1830s, there were so many of them that they called it Tablertown. When they discovered coal, this guy named Sam Pilt to the courthouse and recorded it. It was not an official name, even though they called it Tablertown for 50 or 75 years. And last year we got the name changed back. correcting history.
Tablertown originally by the locals, and then the Kilbert man
And go.
he went about the process, got it, and got it. And then just last year, he was able to put together a petition. And how does one go about getting that petition pushed?
We had tremendous support from our county commissioners. Former Commissioner Roxanne Groff is our neighbor, and she's also on my board now. They were willing to go do this. I was like, so many things. She drafted the final letter, and we submitted it to the county commissioners. They've been very supportive, and so pretty excited about that.
What do you feel like the legacy of Tablertown for future generations? What do you believe it's going to be?
Let me just say this. The last job left our community in 1950. They mined coal there from 18 to 19. So when I went to the Voinovich School on Ohio University campus, I said, how do you come to a historically Black community and create something that could create jobs? I firmly believe our history can save our community and create jobs, talk about paying jobs. So I'm really excited about that. I feel for the first time, we are seen as a cultural asset. And before we were looked down upon as people on welfare, people who didn't want to work, all the negative stereotypes, which are further thing from the tree. This is the first step.
So just to give the audience a little more context, this man, he's from Sims County, essentially, right?
Miles,
100 miles one way every
for 20 years, 200 miles a day, and I work 12-hour days.
When nobody tell you we don't work, we put in work.
I'll be honest, I'm not the only person.
Right.
I don't know what drove from our community to Columbus for 30 years, because people say jokingly, why did you get a job in that? I was too tall. I'd say people would get it.
I got
you.
I
Like, oh, what do you mean you're too tall? Oh, it's just a fact of life. We do what we have to do to survive, and be survivors.
So what do you feel is next in terms of, like, right now with date 2028 or 20? What's the date for actually
in the museum?
Building the
We could go under design this year, and if everything falls in place with the mine reclamation cleanup, could be in 2026, fall back to 27.
We'll definitely keep our eye out. See. So outside of that, what do you feel like some of your future work could be? I'm sure that's plenty of stuff. Could anything more than that? That's a lot.
We know our European history pretty well. Met a European family in Germany. Our next big goal is to trace my grandmother and his people, where they came from. And so this is very important. And I think with research, with DNA, I think it's very possible we can get really close. But Dr. Henry Louis Gates of Finding Your Roots.
Right.
He's our
really. Hey, man. Hey.
Yeah, he's our cousin. His grandmother was a slave. He was born in West Virginia, and where his grandmother was a slave, my grandmother was a slave. They were only an hour apart, and came to our family reunion in West Virginia. I didn't get to go.
Wow.
But pretty exciting.
So how do you become such a great storyteller? Clearly, you got to have the passion to do it. You got to keep good records and overall memory or whatever. So, like, how did you become great storyteller?
I had an uncle. My mom was the only brother. Alvin Clay Adams Hall from Ohio University is named after him. He was one of the first Black graduates in journalism from Ohio University. Covered all the civil rights. Wrote hundreds of articles for magazine. He was really my mentor in learning about family and preservation. We are still learning from his writing. He was an excellent writer. And he wrote down this German story 40 years ago. And now we have documentation proving it. Pretty amazing.
Tell you what, again, this has been a great conversation. Be able to sit across from the butcher. My friend Joe Green got us together. We were just running notes across each other over the last 2 days. You could say almost to a week. So it's been our pleasure to be able to bring you to the show. If you have any shout outs that you want to give to anybody that's out there, whether it be wife and kids or anybody that you can think of, feel free.
The university is honoring me with an honorary degree in May. Would like to thank Dr. Nancy Stevens, who submitted my application to the university a couple of years ago. She runs the museum complex, the museum. And of course, my wife. This is stressful on the family business,
Right.
because I have to be very careful how I plan things. I'm only off every other weekend, and I say, "Oh, I got get coming." And then my mother is 86 years old. Her name is Desi Nickel Workman, and we're blessed still to have her. She was the first person, the moment I took my first breath, been there every step of the way. I am truly blessed. I really am. We're a blessed family, even through these hard times. I know one thing about our family: we will survive. So we just go along.
Well, as we close, one thing we like to give our guests the opportunity to do. You can think of anybody else on top of your head that you feel like was a great person to bring to the table, to the Roots and Routes, where we talk sports, but it's way bigger than just sports. We like to connect. The reason we call it Roots and Routes. So the roots, is like our origin, our genesis, where we come from, our upbringing, that got us to where we are. And then the route talks about the direction or the path, ultimate pathway for our people. If there's anybody you can think of, whether it be somebody that's more well known or somebody lesser well known, you feel great. Thank Joe Grant, because we've already done it at the table. But outside of someone like
So I can name a few right now. Dr. Kenton Butcher, my nephew, on my mom's side, is the first to get a PhD in the family, and so we're really proud of him for that. And he's done a lot of amazing research. Dr. Amanda Flowers, psychology, is her major. You really want to go into deep about how slavery, our people, and it's still affecting our people.
right.
I highly recommend. She was on my board, but she still worked with me. Dr. Finley, who's at Penn University, is a relative, does a lot of research on the war soldiers. So I can give you names all day long.
Don't be surprised if we might put you to task on some things and make you do a little homework on our behalf. But overall, I appreciate the
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you
Good
for
to have you. Thanks for just coming across. You can be home with the family right now. It's been our pleasure. I'd even have you back again, talk about the work that you do at secular work.
We should pull that. Oh, let's go on.
For sure.
Yeah,
For
we
sure.
can explain what's going on, and we can document that.
We can definitely.
Really good.
I encourage people to come. Right now, my museum's in a whole bar, and we did a lot of money in express people's faces. You can tell when somebody's serious when they walk in. You're on a farm, you're out in the middle of the morning, and they go, "Wow, I had no idea." And I like you're headed in the right direction. Share one more quick story with me.
Oh, no problem.
Early on, we're learning. We make mistakes, make improvements. Small church group, local. And local girls that were 12, 13, 14 years old in the group. And their mother is white, their father's person of color. I didn't know if they knew their history. And all I can do when you come into my museum is tell what I know. Their mother wrote me the nicest letter. She wrote me a letter and said, "David, help my daughters more in 2 hours than I've been able to in 10 years." And this is the kind of thing you're heading in the right direction. We have a lot of work to do, but those kinds of things, and it's from all over the world coming in, truly amazing.
So let me just recap, Ruben. If I'm remembering when I was doing my research, 2003, you was at Ohio University,
Kennedy Museum.
at the Adams Hall. Is that what it's called?
No, the Kennedy Museum.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
This is originally the oldest sane asylum in Athens, now the Kennedy Museum. And we did it there in 2003, 2004, and we were supposed to be up for over a whole year, and the new director came in and cut us in half. And it's still ended up being the largest exhibit in the history of the Kennedy.
You're definitely making an impact, an indelible mark.
I give a shout out to, I would say, John Kerry worked for Governor DeWine, and we won several awards. We won the MLK Award for the whole state of Ohio last year. We won the Ohio Heritage Award. We won the African American Storytellers Award and a few others. But when we won the Ohio Heritage Award, we got to meet John Kerry, and I didn't really know how important he is. So, well, he has been very supportive. Of course, I pull out a card and say, hey, please come to Tablertown. And that's what I find that our people willing to act. In the game, you're not playing. And we've been left out of a lot of federal grants, community money. And so John Kerry came, and we applied for Handler, didn't get it, applied for Handler, didn't get it. This is a grant for communities impacted by coal. And he assigned a guy to help us. And I'm telling you, it was not only did he assign it, their office paid for him to help us write the Handler. And his name's Jay Bennett from Zanesville, and tremendous. Just don't know how we handle this. I don't realize how hard these are really hard to get. I'm going to give a shout out to him. I'm going to say one more thing.
No, yeah, you're fine. Absolutely. I'm here. I love it.
Ohio University is 220 years old. They're honoring me with a degree this year. Really important to me is Laura Lee Stewart Gonzalez, the first woman president of Ohio University. They're working at 220 years old.
Right.
You will be the first president ever. These are the kind of things that excite me.
That's necessary. A lot of times people get in position, and it depends on where they're coming from, but you can get people that look your direction, be able to have these conversations and shed light. Because ultimately, to be able to gain access to resources, to gain access to people coming to your town, coming to witness a lot of y'all's history, it's a network. It's about the relationship.
It is, and I will don't anybody. This is about travel and tourism and tax dollars. When people are given these grants, they want to see them for sure. And when I comment that for the first time we've been seen as, what's the term I use, an asset. We're an asset, a liability, cultural asset. That's the term I want to use. We are looked at now as a cultural asset.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody kid you. They're investing money out here from Cincinnati, Underground Railroad Museum. Millions and millions of dollars for this. Lawrence County up the river. Hey, what about us? Lawrence County was awarded $1.5 million last year to develop their Underground Railroad tourism. And then we applied for our first federal grant about the Underground Railroad and recognizing sites. So we got a small $50,000 federal grant to hire salting firm out of Columbus to help us locate and designate 6 counties from here to our area. We're pretty excited.
So the power of media to communicate, to organize, to motivate. So this has been an inspirational type of conversation, and we appreciate it. Once again, like, share, subscribe. We're on all the digital platforms. It's been our pleasure, Mr. Butcher.
Thank you. Invite everybody to come to Tablertown and see the museum, and inspire some of these other people to carry this work on.
Loose and Ralph, we are out.